Was it your own personal injuries, or what kind of piqued your interest into just like the GOATA world and other ways of training?
Yeah. So getting into GOATA happened during COVID when we were all locked up in our basements.
Yeah.
And so I was taking exercise science classes and I was on Instagram and I saw it was the first video I saw of them. They were diagramming a guy running and why he was having hamstring and hip flexor issues. And so they were talking about the GOATA pattern and it kind of just like clicked for me. The pattern did, and so it was something that I had to uh, dive into the rabbit hole of. And so the next semester when we came back, I had to get an internship. So I just emailed the GOTA people because I figured that they took interns. I didn't really know. So I went down to New Orleans and lived down there for a summer, and yeah, lived in the gym and like literally lived in a trailer behind the gym for three
Nice.
months and trained 5 hours in the morning and then it was like 4 hours at night. And so yeah, I learned a lot, and then kind of going through everything, um, a lot of my issues weren't totally subsiding, so kept doing the research and figuring out things. And so yeah, that was my injuries were definitely what brought me down that, just because that's I probably wouldn't have been interested if I didn't have hamstring hip flexor issues. And that video would have just kind of been scrolled past. But no, it definitely was a huge part of my life.
Yeah. What through that experience, I guess, what things did you agree with or kind of stuck with you, or like light bulb moments, and what things maybe, I guess, over time have you done differently or started to see different than kind of that approach?
Yeah. So the big thing about the GOTA system is they really have seen or diagrammed that movement pattern that like humans naturally move in. Um, the the biggest issues are how they go about training it, because it's almost like they do the opposite of what they should be in my mind, for a couple reasons. So um, the GOTA pattern, that like you guys know the terminology, like the bow in the corner, like so the
Hmm.
bow is that landing shape or the pressurizing shape where your leg is externally rotating, and then the corner is that leaving shape or depressurizing shape where your whole leg is internally rotating. um, those things are just paired actions of the glute in my mind. So the bow is pairing hip extension with external rotation. And then that corner is pairing hip flexion with internal rotation. So those are the paired actions of the glute, because the glute shortens to extend the hip and to externally rotate the hip. And then the glute lengthens to flex the hip and internally rotate. But what GOTA does is they they do flexion with external rotation. So they're like bow squat. They open the hips while they're lowering themselves,
Right.
which to me would be the opposite. And then they train that corner pattern by like spinning their heel away with their foot on the ground. So they're extending their hip while they're internally rotating. So those are kind of, yeah, like I said, it's just a little backwards to me.
Hmm.
And then um, yeah, when you think about the squat, I actually think about the descent of the squat as like your leaving pattern. It's not really how you land on the ground, it's how you pull your leg from the ground or your foot from the ground. And then um, yeah, the ascent of the squat is really how you like pressurize into the ground, because anytime your foot is striking the ground when you're running, you're actually extending your hip. You want to be striking the ground. You don't want to be like landing way out in front of you and then flexing your hip and then rolling over it. So
Hmm.
yeah, does that make sense? I
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Um, and yeah, obviously, I'm not super familiar with everything they do, but it definitely at least opened my eyes to a different way of approaching it. You know, coming from a someone who loved the weight room and a strength and conditioning background, just a different philosophy, and at least got me thinking, even if I didn't agree with everything. And I really, at least for me as a coach, just started getting more and more away from the squat rack and the barbell all the time. And by the end of my coaching career, like there was maybe one or two things we were doing in the squat rack. But I guess I always struggled with, it felt like nothing was loaded ever, if that makes sense, or there wasn't a ton of external load. And I think that was like the biggest barrier to kind of buying into that. So I guess how did you feel during that time, and has that changed for you now?
Yeah, and you hit it on the head. There's not a ton of external load because it's hard to externally load those things.
Yeah.
And in my mind, you actually need to load your body really heavy. I know that's probably a crazy idea, but no, it's like you have to do that, and that's what drives adaptations like way faster. I mean, you can adapt your body doing thousands of reps, but you're going to be burnt out from it. So, finding ways to externally load the body was kind of the thing that made me start evolving what I was doing. And um, yeah, it's that I got so slow doing just GOATA. Like there was no way around it. And like I did try to rationalize in my head, like, oh, I'm moving so much better now. But moving the best is being really fast and powerful and just being a freak. So yeah, there was things to be desired for sure.
Hmm. Do you? So I feel like it. What I also struggle with, like I feel like it can carry over to linear movements like sprinting, where it's more kind of closed environment, if you will, like not reacting. Do you feel like in a more reactive sense, like cutting and juking, like more chaos? Do you feel like that carryover exists with that system?
Um, I mean, if you ask them, yeah. But so I was running into the issue where, because in GOTA you pressurize that outside edge basically. You pressurize like that outside ball of your foot, and I was running into the issue of rolling my ankle a lot because you need pressure between your big toe and your second toe, and then everything can funnel outward. But um, yeah, so the lateral part of it was lacking for sure. And then my lateral movement got way better once I started actually squatting using just massive internal rotation and pressurizing the between the big toe and the second toe, because that's really how you lock your foot into place. Your foot has three arches that when you start an internal rotation and your foot's locked down, and then your shin can rotate and lock that foot into place. That's when you can go the opposite way. But if you start there, it's really hard to push off of it. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that like you said, it's a lot more sprinting based, um, and most of their assessments are done on just walking and running straight. So, um, but I mean, I learned a lot from them. I'm not like dogging on them or anything, but
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
just kind of pointing out the things that I've noticed and the things that I've changed with how I do things now.